What your clients really want is not functional fitness. They want practical fitness, and there's a difference. Functional fitness is optimizing for performance. Practical fitness is optimizing for practicality, for a person genuinely being able to live in the real world easier as a result of the way that they train in the gym. Your clients don't care how much weight they can clean and jerk. Your clients don't care what their mile time was. Your clients don't care how many pull-ups they can do. What your clients really care about is whether or not coming to the gym makes it easier for them to live their life and likely that their life lasts longer. Now, you might have created an environment in your gym where your clients actually do care about the things I said they don't care about, but you taught them to. It's not that they joined because those were the important things for them. I'm Dr. Sean Pastuch, owner and founder at Active Life. I've owned 3 CrossFit affiliates. I've been a personal trainer for over 20 years. I own a company called Active Life where we help people overcome chronic aches and pains using fitness as healthcare. And I want to teach you what we teach to the trainers who come through our education because they earn more than double what the average trainer in the fitness world earns, and they do it in less time. So if you could learn this and adopt it and allow yourself to believe that it's true, because it is, you have a better chance of making more money, helping more people also. Here we go. Practical fitness. The term, by the way, it came to me one day because I was outside in front of my house. My neighbor, Jeff, comes by and he goes, "Hey, I have a question for you. I'm trying to build strength, but I don't know what to do. Well, what should I do?" I'm like, "Well, what kind of strength are you trying to build? What are you trying to do?" He's like, "Dude, I just want a practical amount of fitness. And he told me, I don't care how much weight I can squat. I don't care how fast I run. I just want to be able to play with my kid. I want to be able to be active as I get older. I see my parents becoming less active. I just want a practical amount of fitness." You know what I mean? I'm like, you know what? Ding, ding, ding. I do. So there are 4 principles to you developing practical fitness programs for your clients in general. What's important that you know is practical fitness is everything that you need and nothing more. So if you're training professional football players, everything I'm about to say goes out the window. It's impractical for them. If you're training CrossFit Games athletes, everything I'm about to say goes out the window. It's impractical for them. What I'm about to show you is what is practical for a person who wants to use their fitness to move through the free world more freely. That's it. They don't care about their PRs. They don't care about what the teardrop in their shoulder looks like or their tricep muscle. They don't care about a six-pack. Do they want to look good? Yeah. Do they have a very clear aesthetic of what looking good for them would be? Not really, just better than what it is today. These are the people who need the most help from the fitness industry, who are prepared to pay the most money, and who need you to meet them where they are. There are 4 principles. Let's go over them. The first principle might blow your mind like it did mine when I finally realized it. That is that, generally speaking, a dynamic spine in your training is going to be better and more practical than a static spine. So what does that mean? If you have clients deadlifting, they're bending their hips, they're bending their knees, but they're not rounding their back. They're not rotating their back. They're not doing anything with their spine. In fact, their spine should stay completely static through the lift. We should still do these things. I want to be clear with you. When I say this over this, it means more of this, less of this. Not all of this and none of this. It's important that we do both. The benefit of things like static spine lifts is that we can load more weight. And that's going to be better for developing bone density, especially with people who are aging populations. They have to do it. But should their program be full of it? No. Their program should be full of dynamic spine exercises, because the less the spine moves under load, the more endangered the spine is to experiencing loads while it moves through the world. Your job, load the spine, do it safely, more than you keep the spine static. The second principle, compound exercises are more practical and better than isolation. Compound exercises are exercises that use more than one joint at a time to complete the movement. So a bicep curl is an isolation exercise. A row is a compound exercise that includes flexing of the elbow, just like a bicep curl. It will put slightly less strain on the bicep, so your hypertrophy goals might not be met as fast, your bodybuilding goals won't be met as fast, but your clients aren't bodybuilders who are coming in for hypertrophy goals. They want to be able to move through the free world easier. Compound lifts are better for time. You can train the full body in less time. B, you can typically move more weight than you can in isolation. And C, we never use things in isolation in the real world. I made that C on purpose, not A or B. And the reason why it's C is because exercises don't necessarily have to look like what the real world looks like for them to be effective and valuable. In fact, that's one of the biggest fallacies that functional fitness sells. Exercises should look like what the real world looks like. They don't have to. What we have to do is build strong, resilient muscle, tendons, and joint mechanics, motor control, and then integrate them through things like sport and movement. That's reality. That's why if someone's ever walked into your gym who just spent their whole life bodybuilding, and then you throw them into something like a clean and jerk or a sprint or something like that, they pick it up pretty quick. They typically pick it up pretty quick, and they're stronger than the people who come in who don't have that background. That's because isolation exercise still works. Bodybuilding works. Developing muscle works. And if we really put that whole functional fitness moniker to the test, how often do we squat with the technique that we squat with a bar on our back? We don't. How often do we deadlift with the same technique that we deadlift a barbell? We don't. We're picking up odd objects. We're sitting 2 chairs, 2 benches. When we're squatting lower than that, we're not trying to keep our spine static. We're just squatting down to the bottom. In fact, our spines will typically round in the bottom of a regular rested squat. Don't be sold the nonsense that functional fitness sells, that exercises have to look like life for them to actually transfer to life. It's not true. So in practical fitness, we're going to prioritize compound lifts over isolation lifts. And again, that doesn't mean instead of, it means more of. If somebody has a tendon issue, for example, isolation lifts are what they need. So we need to be careful to say this instead of this. It's not that, it's this more often than this. Again. Let's get to the third principle. Unilateral or asymmetric is more practical than bilateral or symmetrical. What does that mean? You're better off doing something like a step up or a lunge than you are doing a squat. Why? There's a few reasons why. Number one, it eliminates the likelihood of imbalances from left to right. It eliminates us compensating for something that we don't know that we're weak at by using the side that we're stronger with. So unilateral is going to be higher priority than bilateral. Asymmetrical is an example of unilateral because it's loading each side of the body differently than if we were to do things 2 hands at a time. Like for example, the simplest example to give is a farmer's carry. One handle here, one handle here, go for a walk. That would technically be a bilateral exercise, although we're taking 1 step, 2 step, and those are each unilaterally done. So I love that exercise. But a single arm farmer's carry is going to more closely simulate what our body is going to experience when we load it in the real world. Not look like the real world, more similarly load like we're going to need to be prepared for in the real world. You want to be able to create strength on one side while the other side just provides support. If you don't train that, you won't have that. The likelihood in the real world that you're moving something without your spine moving from left to right is extremely low. the likelihood of you carrying 2 bags that are the same exact weight is extremely low. The likelihood of you having to lift things off of the ground that have a heavier side on one and a lighter side on the other is high. I want you to start having practice with that. Most importantly, unilateral. Less importantly, asymmetrical. Okay, so in the prioritization of prioritization, unilateral is critical, asymmetrical is B. Okay? We don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. We're going to do bilateral lifts. Like I said earlier, the dumbbell, the barbell. Like I said early, the deadlift. It's a good exercise. We should do it. But not as often as we do things unilaterally. We want to beat up the imbalances that are developed by doing things on 2 legs and with 2 arms all the time, especially when one side is most likely going to be dominant. So unilateral over bilateral, asymmetrical over symmetrical. The fourth and final principle is that instead of having a purely vertical vector for things, having a forward vector is preferred. What does that mean? When I'm pressing, this is purely vertical, right? This is purely vertical. This is forward. This has a forward dynamic. This is straight up and down. We are going to lose the ability to produce force when we do it straight up and down. Why? Because we're taking the joint to its absolute end range of motion where it's not happy to be fully loaded. Now, I need to be clear. Again, more often, not instead of. Because if we don't train in our end ranges, we will be weak there. And when we access our end ranges in the real world, we risk injury when we're weak. So let's be strong in all of our ranges. But I want you to be focusing on how can this person I'm working with most easily move the maximum amount of load with the lowest amount of effort. That is going to include a forward vector. It's going to include a forward dynamic. They're going to be able to, for example, hack squat more than they are able to front squat or back squat. Part of that is because they don't need to stabilize the load. Part of that is because they're moving forward the way the body was intended to move. When they press, with a landmine, for example, they're going to be able to press more like this than they are with a dumbbell like this. Partly because they don't have to stabilize the load. Also partly because they're not getting close to the end range of motion where they're going to be the weakest. So I want you to do both. I want you to keep the joint happy and safe. The way to do that, sometimes we don't train to the end ranges. And one of the ways to avoid training to the end ranges all the time is by including a forward vector in your lifts when you are doing vertical lifting. A squat is a vertical lift. Doing it in a forward direction, I prefer, is more practical than doing it straight up and down. A sprint is more practical than a squat. These are the simple examples. You can go ahead and tweak it for yourself after this, but just think to yourself, if something is going straight up and down, how can I add a forward vector to it without loading the joint in a way I don't want to? So an example of what you would not want to do, dumbbell shoulder press should not be done here. This is not good for the shoulder. Dumbbell shoulder press should be done like a dumbbell shoulder press here. But I can take a landmine and I can press it here. That's what I want you to be thinking about. Again, it's not don't do this, it's do this more often than you do this. And we're talking about a forward vector when there's a vertical movement involved. 4 principles to practical fitness. Dynamic spine over static spine. Compound lifts over isolation lifts. Unilateral and asymmetrical lifts over bilateral symmetrical lifts. When moving vertically, include a forward vector more often than you don't. If you keep these 4 principles in your programming for your clients, you will have an easier time attracting a Gen Pop who wants and needs access to the fitness world so that they can live a longer, more free-moving life, and you can be the person to help them do it, just like the coaches that we educate at Active Life, who earn double the national average. I hope this was helpful for you. Any questions, post them to the comments. Like and subscribe to the channel. I'm Dr. Sean Pastuch. This video is over.